Since you seem to have liked my video about the JoJo villains ranked by intelligence, I figure why not make another one, this time focused on the JoJos. Now if you watched my previous video on the villains, you know how this video is gonna be structured, but if you are new here, just know that before ranking them I first analyze each one in chronological order and see what they have to offer in terms of the extent of their intellectual capabilities. So I'll be considering feats, which feature Howard Gardner's theory of multiple different types of intelligences, such as logical, spatial linguistics, and etc. I'd like you to consider subscribing to this channel if you enjoy my content, and hit the bell so that YouTube can let you know of when a new video is released. Alright, let's get started. Jonathan Joestar, like the aristocrat that he is, graduated from university after having written a celebrated thesis in archaeology. Not only that, but he was able to identify and pinpoint the exact spots of the brain the stone mask pierced, though he'd never figured out its true purpose. In combat, Jonathan is good at thinking through moves immediately and using the environment to his advantage. On several occasions, Jonathan was able to quickly formulate plans, even in moments of crisis. Still mourning his father's death, Jonathan had to fight the vampirized Dio and consider burning down the Joestar mansion to nullify Dio's regenerative abilities. Likewise, Jonathan, with a throat injury causing a lack of oxygen to the brain, used a final portion of the Hamon energy to defeat Yang Chang, whipping out a horde of zombies and Dio, controlling Wen Chen's body to explode the ship, and also used the fact that Win Knight's lot was a coal mining town to infer that there would be air pockets in the bottom of the lake that could provide Bruford with an expected production of Hamon. Joseph is a hot-headed, impetuous and aggressive young man and was involved in brawls growing up. Before the story, he had been in prison 7 times and was expelled from school in virtue of his bad behavior, but that didn't stop him from training as a realtor, which sharpened his persuasive skills. Joseph angered the police and the mob by disrespecting every authority other than his grandmother and Lisa. Joseph is a foul-mouthed man who often taunts his enemies for the pleasure of provoking them. His trademark taunt predicts his enemy's next line, and he proves true throughout. He specifically mocks Cars for sending him into space, claiming to have again planned everything from the beginning just to annoy him. Joseph's cultural baggage is also quite vast as he's traveled the world, read many books, and seen many movies. Joseph has a rather goofy side, spending half of his battles enjoying outwitting current enemies with cunning schemes that surprise his opponents. He also incorporates his taunt into combat to distract enemies from other obvious traps. These qualities were later complemented by the acquisition of Hermed Purple, and his most impressive feat, quote-unquote, is sending ultimate Cars to space with a chopped-off hand. Mind you, Cars had an IQ of 400, more than double than Einstein's 160, besides other pillar men who are obviously superhuman smart. Jotaro is by far the JoJo with the highest educational level, having a PhD degree in marine biology, which earned him the title of a renowned professional, recognized in the entire world for his work in the field, which led him to learn Italian and English besides his native language. Contrasting his discipline and collected characteristics, his tendency in battle is of a more straightforward and physical fighter, and he is known as the invincible stand user, but it doesn't make his approach to combat mindless combination of brawl and brains. Jotaro is also a competent bluffer, making Darby believe Jotaro had a way more valuable hand than him in the poker game, even though that was not true. Jotaro's stoicity oftentimes works to the same effect. His most impressive feats are his Joseph-esque schemes that he used to trick Dio, as well as completely humiliating Darby, who is more intelligent than Einstein by a margin of 30 points. Yosuke is yet another edgy delinquent teenager who constantly neglects his academic obligations because he's more concerned about easy money and playing video games. In almost any situation, Yosuke is extremely agile, and he's very aware of his surroundings and his own abilities. He's able to use whatever he has at hand to tackle any problem, and has also been shown to be able to plan several moves ahead by understanding behavior and reading opponents' habit. Yosuke is so confident in his abilities that he claims there is nothing nothing Crazy Diamond can fix, and expresses mild disappointment after figuring out what he thought would have been one such problem. Due to his intelligence, Yosuke can be quite cunning, occasionally manipulating, lying, and deceiving others to achieve certain selfish ends. He held his own against a shooter with invisible bullets. Just surviving would have been impressive enough, but he also worked out a way to diminish the distance between him and Kira, using his blood in a glass shrapnel as a projectile, and wrecked him in hand-to-hand combat. Just like Diavolo, Giorno very likely didn't finish high school, and still managed to take Diavolo's place as the boss of the Mafia at 15 years old. One trait that Giorno shares among his peers is his determination. It can be said that he is able to make important decisions without hesitation, even in the face of pain, sorrow, and tragedy. In Part 5, Giorno is so determined that on the spur of the moment, he is often willing to get hurt if it creates a favorable situation. An ambitious man who is willing to jump at any opportunity to achieve his ultimate goal of becoming a gangstar. When Giorno starts working with Passione gangster Bruno Bucciarati, he infiltrates the gang immediately and works his way up the ranks. He killed Polpo in part to secure Bucciarati's promotion. Giorno also tried to approach Passione's boss personally and planned to install a tracking device on him. Having one of the most versatile stands, Giorno combines that with his knowledge of biology to make the most out of Gold Experience's power. Some notable feats are uncovering the secret behind Cioccolata and Prosciutto stands of altitude and temperature, and when he made a vaccine to Purple Haze's virus. If Jotaro is the role model for people, then Jolyne's the polar opposite, being a vandal troublemaker. Jolyne had more important things to worry about than school, trying to adapt and survive the harsh environment of Green Dolphin Street Prison. But lack of education doesn't seem to be a deterrent to the Jojos. And it's no different with Jolyne, because she's both imaginative in an over-the-top way using Stone Free, and in a more grounded and realistic way. Jolyne's topmost asset is her imagination. The protean power of her stand allows her a wide range of moves which she considerably uses. For illustration, when Pucci used Sea Moon to invert Jolyne's body, she used Stone Free to produce a Mobius strip, rendering her effectively impregnable to its power. Jolyne combines her tactics with a high level of recklessness, often endangering herself to surprise her enemies with an unpredictable move. Nonetheless, the nature of her power assures that she can shrug off some of the damage ordinary stand users cannot risk in a fight. Jolyne's intelligence is intuitive to a degree, given that she views some of her moves as dumb luck, although it is a valid interpretation of her actions. Johnny Joestar is a depressive ex-jockey who clings to his stopgap of recovering the use of his legs through the spin and also the corpse throughout Steel Ball Run. Johnny is introduced as a distant paraplegic man whose career was ruined when he was shot in the spine after conceitedly envenoming a passerby. Despite relying on Gyro for almost everything, when Johnny did have to get by alone, he showed potential that was rightfully put to good use in the end of Steel Ball Run. Johnny's motor intelligence is not that impressive since he'd been severely crippled. The requirement to the effective use of the spin is the golden ratio, which is only possible by analyzing the environment, so it's obvious that to master the golden spin, Johnny had no choice but to become an exceptional observer. Yosuke is overall a quite normal person, but he's inherited some cold and apathetic traits from Yoshikage Kira that helped him overcome the overly emotional characteristic that is key to Josefumi Kujo's character. This was certainly a determining factor as to why he became such a great detective, and he demonstrated good manipulative and persuasive skills during the beetle fight. Despite being suited for combat, he's limited by his inability to control the course of his bubbles. Yosuke is excellent at math, being able to solve trigonometry problems with ease. Spatial awareness is a talent of his, and is very good at determining the space between things. Through better understanding his stand, he was able to defeat the monstrous stand Wonder of You with Soft and Wet Go Beyond. We've briefly gone over all of them, so it's time to rank them. In 8th place, we have Johnny Joestar, because despite his constant improvement throughout part 7, he was still very much dependent on Gyro to get out of difficult situations, and his reasoning is a tad bit slower than the rest of the JoJos. And due to the fact that he is a more realistic and relatable person, he doesn't display genius level intellect to compensate for his disadvantages. In the 7th spot is part 4 Yosuke, because of his tendency to be lazy and hot-headed, which leads him to make stupid decisions. I wouldn't be surprised if he lashed out on Toru. Knowing Wonder of You's ability just because he insulted his hair, a little more indifference and discipline would have certainly guaranteed a higher spot on the list for Yosuke. Right above in 6th place is Jolene, only because Jolene has to constantly surpass her limits of what she can do with her stand. Her resourcefulness is always being put to the test, which makes so that she is able to adapt to different circumstances very easily and come out on top. In 5th place is Jonathan Joestar, and it's understandable. How is it possible to become a better version of yourself when there is an overbearing and demonic brother you have to defend your family from for years? And the moment Jonathan thought he could live a fulfilling life and become an archaeologist and be happy with Irina, all that goes down the drain. But Jonathan was a remarkable thinker and really excelled at finding solutions when he was facing way stronger enemies. All that when there was no overpowered stand abilities to assist him. The 4th more intelligent Joestar is Jotaro, and you would think that because he's got one of the most insane stands in the series, he'd be a dumb cocky musclehead. I didn't mention this before, but Jotaro's time stop at the beginning of Diamond is Unbreakable is of 0.25 seconds. He was clearly more interested in other things. What other things? Feeding his brain. The 3rd more intelligent JoJo is part 8 Yosuke, condensing the knowledge of 2 people into one. Yosuke is an expert in logical reasoning. Most of the times he makes decisions ignoring his emotive side, and he's an excellent strategist. Not far above him in 2nd place is Giorno Giovanna, who's basically a human encyclopedia. The difference between Yosuke and Giorno is that Giorno is more daring, because he knows he's able to figure something out that's gonna save his skin. And finally, number 1, which is Joseph Joestar. If there was such a thing as a good Joker, it's Joseph. He's cunning enough to challenge ascended vampires, goofy enough that he doesn't let his enemies in on the previous quality of his, resourceful enough that he's always a step ahead of his opponent, to the point where he can even predict the enemy's next line by paying attention to their facial expression. Just imagine how much time it would take to get to know someone so well that you can do that. And Joseph can analyze something like that in a matter of seconds. Yeah, Joseph is the GOAT. What do you think of this list? Would you change anything about it? Leave a comment down below. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you in the next one.